The Heroes of Olympus, Book 5, The Blood of Olympus, by Rick Riordan.
Chapter 44, Piper. For the next 3 minutes, life was great. So much happened at once that only an ADHD demigod could have kept track. Jason fell on King Porphyrion with such force that the giant crumpled to his knees, blasted with lightning and stabbed in the neck with a golden gladius. Frank unleashed a hail of arrows, driving back the giants nearest to Percy. The Argo II rose above the ruins, and all the ballistae and catapults fired simultaneously. Leo must have programmed the weapons with surgical precision. A wall of Greek fire roared upward all around the Parthenon. It didn't touch the interior, but in a flash most of the smaller monsters around it were incinerated. Leo's voice boomed over the loudspeaker. "Surrender! You're surrounded by one spanking hot war machine!" The giant Enceladus howled in outrage. "Valdes!" "What's up, enchiladas?" Leo's voice roared back. "Nice dagger in your forehead." "Grrrr!" The giant pulled Catoptris out of his head. "Monsters! Destroy that ship!" The remaining forces tried their best. A flock of griffins rose to attack. Festus the figurehead blew flames and charbroiled them out of the sky. A few Earthborn launched a volley of rocks, but from the sides of the hole a dozen Archimedes spheres sprayed out, intercepting the boulders and blasting them to dust. "Put some clothes on!" Buford ordered. Hazel spurred Arion off the colonnade, and they leaped into battle. The 40-foot fall would have broken any other horse's legs, but Arion hit the ground running. Hazel zipped from giant to giant, stinging them with the blade of her spatha. With extremely bad timing, Kekrops and his snake people chose that moment to join the fight. In 4 or 5 places around the ruins, the ground turned to green goo, and armed Gemini burst forth, Kekrops himself in the lead. "Kill the demigods!" he hissed. "Kill the tricksters!" Before many of his warriors could follow, Hazel pointed her blade at the nearest tunnel. The ground rumbled. All the gooey membranes popped, and the tunnels collapsed, billowing plumes of dust. Kekrops looked around at his army, now reduced to 6 guys. "Slither away!" he ordered. Frank's arrows cut them down as they tried to retreat. The giantess Paraboia had thawed with alarming speed. She tried to grab Annabeth, but despite her bad leg, Annabeth was standing her ground. She stabbed at the giantess with her own hunting knife, and led her in a deadly game of tag around the throne. Percy was back on his feet, riptide once again in his hands. He still looked dazed. His nose was bleeding. But he seemed to be holding his own against the old giant Thune, who had somehow reattached his hand and found his meat cleaver. Piper stood back to back with Jason, fighting every giant who dared to come close. For a moment she felt elated. They were actually winning. But too soon, their element of surprise faded. The giants overcame their confusion. Frank ran out of arrows. He changed into a rhinoceros and leaped into battle, but as fast as he could knock down the giants, they got up again. Their wounds seemed to be healing faster. Annabeth lost ground against Paraboia. Hazel was knocked out of her saddle at 60 miles an hour. Jason summoned another lightning strike, but this time Porphyrion simply deflected it off the tip of his spear. The giants were bigger, stronger, and more numerous. They couldn't be killed without the help of the gods, and they didn't seem to be tiring. The 6 demigods were forced into a defensive ring. Another volley of earthborn rocks hit the Argo II. This time, Leo couldn't return fire fast enough. Rows of oars were sheared off. The ship shuddered and tilted in the sky. Then Enceladus threw his fiery spear. It pierced the ship's hull and exploded inside, sending spouts of fire through the oar openings. An ominous black cloud billowed from the deck. The Argo II began to sink. "Leo!" Jason cried. Porphyrion laughed. "Your demigods have learned nothing. There are no gods to aid you. We need only one more thing from you to make our victory complete." The giant king smiled expectantly. He seemed to be looking at Percy Jackson. Piper glanced over. Percy's nose was still bleeding. He seemed unaware that a trickle of blood had made its way down his face to the end of his chin. "Percy, look out!" Piper tried to say, but for once her voice failed her. A single drop of blood fell from his chin. It hit the ground between his feet and sizzled like water on a frying pan. The blood of Olympus watered the ancient stones. The Acropolis groaned and shifted as the Earth Mother woke.